So, I want to introduce our guest today. This is Matt Lewis. Matt has been some Matt Lewis fans in the room, obviously. Matt is a pastor at Beach Point Church. Matt has been a worship pastor for 20 years.
Yeah.
And he's a conference speaker, has been a traveling musician and sound tech. So give it up for Matt Lewis. Hey Matt, so tell us a little bit about your story. How did you get into worship leading? Where did you start? What did you do kind of along the way?
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't have a lot of time, so I'll make it really quick, because 20 years is a long time. So it really started with an invitation by a high school pastor, who was not my high school pastor. He was my sister's high school pastor. And my sister had talked me up at summer camp that summer to our new high school pastor at the church that my family went to, and she told him that I led worship. Mind you, I had no idea what that actually meant. 20 years ago, that didn't really kind of exist. Worship leaders didn't really exist. And he said, "Oh, your sister told me that you sang and play guitar. So
you lead worship.
So obviously. You lead worship." So my first experience was one of the worst experiences of my life. And it started down at Huntington Beach. And let me tell you, I thought, man, I'm going to bring my guitar and I'm going to strum and I'm going to be like the Pied Piper. Yes. And everyone is going to just have a Jesus moment. The exact opposite happened. Nobody cared. And I walked away with my head down and I thought, I just did the worst job. I don't ever want to do that. I was so embarrassed, and the high school pastor, his name was Mike, put his arm around me and said, "That was great. That's exactly what I wanted you to do." And 20 years later, where it began in Huntington Beach, I'm a worship pastor in the city of Huntington Beach.
Cool.
So
Matt's leaving a little bit out of his story. I'm going to call you out here, Matt.
Okay.
Matt, I kind of want you to name drop. So Matt's been on the road a little bit. So sorry to embarrass you if this is too much. Who have you been on the road with?
Oh gosh. So I was a college dropout, so I had to figure out how I was going to make a living, and I guess one of the groups that you might have heard of, I did a small thing with AC/DC.
A small thing with AC/DC. I don't think these kids know who AC/DC is.
I did it many years in pyrotechnics. Let's put it that way. So. Pyrotechnics, yeah. I liked a girl. She was cute. Her dad was like the guy in Orange County who supplied pyrotechnics to everybody, and he liked me, and one thing led to another. And
then you did pyrotechnics for AC/DC.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I like to blow things up.
The places love will take you.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, very cool. Hey, so in your experience over in churches over 20 years, what have you seen kind of change in worship? How has worship developed over these years?
Yeah. Oh man. Well, style has been such a thing, right? So 20 years ago, if you can imagine, 20 years ago, Chris Tomlin, right, was like just beginning. And you might think, who's that? Right? Who's Chris Tomlin? I'm dating myself. Like Chris Tomlin and the whole role of the worship leader was somewhat new. Like having one person who was the person to lead a creative ministry and to lead a congregation, like. Up until that point, you were either a professional musician who was hired by the church to lead the choir and play the pipe organ, and then most of us who were worship leaders were uneducated and highly passionate, and we ended up getting ourselves into a lot of trouble. So I guess the arc is like this. The Lord used people who were probably really unskilled, and over the last 20 years, we've just kind of figured out how to do it, and so Here's my concern, though. I think we've become really good at it. It's become our jobs instead of our calling, and that's a concern of mine. And so I think I'm seeing the arc change like this. When I interviewed at Disney years ago, I was told, the guy was a Christian, I was told, because my experience in production when I was 13 learning tech was from the church, I didn't really know what I was talking about, which was true, right? How many of you have been to like a really cheesy church service?
Yes.
Right? But how many of you now, it's really hard to find those because there are churches that are doing really, really high level production. It's really slick, it's really tight, it's really thoughtful. I think that's where it's really, I've seen the most significant change is we've become really good at being really professional in our production. And so you don't see mistakes. And if they're there, nobody admits to them. So.
Yeah, so you mentioned that as a concern.
Yeah.
What about that as a concern for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't ever really get to know the people on the platform. I mean, that's one of the, right? It kind of strips us of relationship. And I think that intentionality is good, you know? So we plan and we program to the nth degree, to the second. But in that, I think we're forming ourselves in such a way where we're more concerned about time, right? We're more concerned about the program than the people that we're leading. And so in essence, what we're doing is we're presenting something to people, but we forget that we're supposed to invite them into participating in this thing that we've prayerfully programmed. And it just misses the whole point. And so I think you can go to a worship service and you can go to a concert and you might not even know like the difference.
The same thing.
Yeah, you might think, oh, that's a concert. And someone will say, no, that's a church I go to. And you're like, really? Oh my gosh. They have pyrotechnics. You know, like they're blowing things up in church. That's crazy.
Yeah. Good. So tell some other things that are concerns for you.
Oh gosh.
What are like your top
Mine
three
not like
things?
top, yeah, my top three.
Yeah. Because you have like 20.
I probably have like 20. Yeah, I think, here's something that I'm concerned about, the longevity of leadership. How many of you are graduating? Okay.
You graduates. 2
Oh,
weeks.
wow. I'm so
you know
sorry.
What? Seniors aren't in here.
Oh, seniors aren't in here.
They don't have to do chapels right now.
Wow, they're blessed.
Yeah. All these poor souls.
I'm so sorry.
Sit and listen to us talk for
I know.
20 minutes.
They're probably on their phones,
right,
tweeting how terrible this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did tell them they could be on their phones.
Yeah, that's true.
That was a mistake.
So I guess for me, the longevity of leadership. So, okay, here's a good message. Here's something to consider over the next maybe year or two or however far you are from completing your degree program. How many of you, here's a question, how many of you actually want to go into full-time vocational ministry, like in the church? Raise your hand. Oh, wow, that's sad. Nobody. Okay, 2 people.
It's hard with
wow.
the lights, I think.
So I'm going to speak to the 2. And you know what? I'll speak to anyone who's going to go into a vocation of any sort. If you go into a job and you think you're going to change the world in 30 days, you're wrong. You're going to be really let down. And here's what I mean. The phrase goes something like this: we overestimate what we can do in a year, and we underestimate what we can do in 10. You have to be the kind of person that's committed to seeing something through for the long haul. So if you want to change the world, changing the world is a large task. It's not going to happen in a month. And you're going to have a lot of letdowns along the way. And my concern, sorry, I called you Mike. My concern, Landon, is that I think we get really excited. I was 26 years old. I walked into my first full-time thing, and I was like, I'm going to change everything in like the first year. I've been there at this church for 11 years.
Still
it's
been changed.
slow. Oh, yeah, it's slow, baby.
Yeah.
So just be committed. Be committed to the community, not to the program, not changing the program, but be committed to the community. So
Yeah.
that's like one of my biggest things. And two, I think the other two are this. We've become really professional. We talked about that. And we've become so good. What we've done is we've said to many in our church, hey, you're not good enough. And you know what? We're so busy and we're so professional that we don't have the time to help you get up to that level, to develop you, to disciple you, to like help develop your gifts. Right? That's like the calling in pastoral ministry, is to raise up the saints for the work of service. And so we're so busy, we're so consumed that we don't even have time for that. So we've become so professional. We're so committed to developing the program, not the people.
Yeah, really interesting. So real quick, because we're about out of time, what makes you want to stay with worship? What makes you want to stick with it?
Yeah, well, I mean, with the church too, I just believe that the church is, in this time, for this time, is God's plan to bring the gospel, the good news, to this place. And so it's not supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be messy. And so I'm committed to that because God is committed to that. And so if he's committed to that, I'm committed to that.
Yeah, and that's good news that if it can be messy and God's committed to us as
Absolutely.
messy people.
Absolutely.
We don't have to be perfect, either on stage as worship leaders or just as any type of minister.
Yep.
That we can be messy and God is going to use us in that way. Very cool. Hey, so we're going to have a time of reflection. We'd love for you to text in questions to us. You can also tweet at us. I think there'll be information on the screen as to where you can hit us up. So please submit some questions to us. All right, so we've got some questions for you, Matt. We'll start in. Here's our first question. You mentioned the danger or concern for leaders looking at their role as a job versus a calling. My friend leads worship, and he is really struggling with balance in his life, marriage, kids, church, etc. I think we might be falling into the category of looking at his role as a job. What advice would you have for me to give to him?
Yeah, I'll keep it really short. I think the allure of ministry is to work really hard, and I don't know what it is, but it's like we think in ministry that we don't deserve a break. And I think the number one thing that pastors, worship leaders need to commit to is a rhythm of life that is sustainable. Ruth Haley Barton, she's a spiritual director, spiritual writer out of Northern Seminary. She says it like this. Here's something really simple. Take 1 hour a day, 1 day a week, 1 week a year as Sabbath solitude. So sustainable rhythms. Yeah. Sustainable rhythms. Because that's where you root your identity in Christ instead of your job. Whenever you find yourself tired or working to your edge or wrapping yourself around finding your identity in your job, your rhythm of life is probably off.
Yeah. And that sounds like a good model for all of us, not just worship
Absolutely.
leaders. Any of us, we're all tempted to put our identity in our job, and that become a source of stress or burnout for us. So yeah, diving into rhythms of life. Very cool. We have another question here. Do you have any tips for a fellow musician on how to hold the tension of pursuing quality while not letting that pursuit become self-focused?
Yeah.
Good, great question.
Yeah, it's so great. Okay, that's a good question. So I guess when art's done well, because that's what you're doing, you're really creating art as you lead worship with music or painting or whatever you're doing. Even production is an art form, tech arts. There's a technical aspect and an artistic aspect. So unfortunately, there aren't many churches that do that well. And so I think the tension is when you walk into a service, it's really distracting. The technology, the leadership, it's just not done well. And so I think, I'm not saying don't be excellent. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, I think whatever you do, you should be excellent. But what I'm saying is, don't let that become the end goal. So much so that you lose sight. Like, that's not the object. The object is God.
Right.
Right? And so it is a tension, but I think that's just one of the things that if you're not holding that tension, I don't know if you're leading well.
Yeah. So maybe there's a thing of excellence, not just in the art, but in some sort of pastoral skill.
Yeah.
Or can you speak to that? Maybe what do you do to kind of nourish pastoral presence in worship?
Yeah, we stop. I don't know if you've been to a worship service that feels like it's moving really fast. I can tell you, I've led worship services where I feel like I'm a snowball being pushed down a hill, and we're just gaining speed until we hit the message, and then everybody gets bored, right? And everyone's like, oh. And then we pick it back up at the end of the service, and and then you get to the end of the service, and it feels like, what just happened? And I've been in leadership positions where I felt that, and I've been in the pew or in the chair being led, and I felt like, dude, stop. So for us, and I know you guys do this here at Biola, we try to in essence do spiritual direction in leading worship. And what I mean by that is we try to notice what's up in the room, like what's going on in this space right now, and let's ask questions to notice, like, okay, I'm noticing that there's a lack of response. What happens in worship leaders? They get mad. You're not raising your hands. There's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
No, there's something wrong with you because you're getting angry.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a journey for the worship leader as much as it's a journey for the people. So maybe what you need to do is open up to the journey. To say, hey guys, I just noticed that there's a sense of closed offness, but I want to invite you into this journey with me. You know, just stop.
Yeah.
Like, pause. We're so scared of space. It's crazy.
Yeah. There's something about silence that makes us a little bit nervous.
Oh, yeah. But, you know, it was Henri Nouwen says, solitude and silence are the furnace for transformation. And we don't have that in our services.
Yeah.
We have just, everything is filled.
Right. As you're saying this thing about snowballing, this kind of high energy worship service, it reminded me of a quote from a pastor talking about many times our worship services are like roller coasters.
Oh, yeah.
They take off, they go all over the place, make all these turns, go up and down, we're going really fast. But when we stop, we get off right where we got on.
Yeah, totally.
So there's no change in our lives. Yeah,
Totally.
That's really good.
Yeah, you need to take like a, I don't know about anybody else in this room, but I have anxiety, and I in the past I've had to take things like a Xanax to just kind of slow things down in the moment, and I liken it to that because it feels like when you're on a roller coaster, and to use that analogy, and it's gaining momentum, and you're like, dude, they need to stop this thing or we're gonna fly off the tracks, and then they do.
Yeah.
That's like, I don't know about you, but like that's how my anxiety is. And my worship services mirror my internal experience.
Yes.
My anxious experience. I need a leader to just go, we're not gonna fly off the tracks.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? We're moving too fast.
That's good. Cool, let's hit another question. What is the difference between congregational worship and personal worship?
Oh, yeah. Oh, in a musical context.
In a musical context, if there's a difference.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to answer this question. Mike gave me the permission to do this in a little different way. I think this is what this is one of my biggest worries, is that that worship and music are just so interconnected. It's almost like worship equals music and music equals worship or something. And I think that worship, like songs, are a way to respond to God in worship, right? They're a tool, But so what's the difference between congregational worship and personal worship? Well, if you want me to quickly answer the musical context, I would say you could sing a song when you're by yourself, and you could sing a song when you're together with people, sure. But worship is about ascribing. It's about ascribing your devotion to God, whether you're doing it just you or you're doing it together. So that's just my worry, is that the music thing is too closely connected to worship. Yeah.
Good, thanks for that. Let's go to our next question. If you could do one thing different in your worship leading to address some of your concerns over slick, concerty worship, what would you do?
Yeah. Okay. Here's my theory. I think production, and I'm a production person, I think our tech arts folks have become the modern day Levitical priests. They're the ones who really drive the planning, the preparation of the room, of the space, the maintenance of the space. Worship leaders have kind of exited the space, and they're fully dependent on the technical artists to support them. So if there's one thing different that I would do, man, I would make sure and I do this, build the relationship with your technical person. Speak vision into them. Disciple them. Because once they understand vision that's driven by a pastoral heart, by a biblical perspective, they'll come alongside that. But I know this, every technical person, they love new shiny things. So if there's a new light or a fog machine, they're going to put it in the room.
Yes.
And they're going to fill the space with the Holy Spirit. the holy smoke machine.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good. Love it. Hey, let's hit another question here. Where's the line between leading worship and creating art with your music?
So good.
Great question.
Oh, that's so good.
College students are smart, man.
Gosh, you guys are. I just want to hang out with you afterwards and talk. Where's the line between leading worship and creating art with your music? Well, I think there have been many moments where people have been led by poor art, with poor art. Yeah. So art that's executed poorly. But haven't you been to a concert where it's almost transcendent, but it's not God. You're not worshiping God, but there's something transcendent about it. I just think good art evokes something in the heart of the person in that space. I'm talking specifically about music. My wife, when we were dating, she was totally into installation art. So these huge immersive experiences, and so these are not paintings on a wall. These are things that consume you, and I think good art does that. But I think good leadership makes sure that you're not consumed by the art, but the art is a pathway or a way in which to engage the person with God. Yeah.
Very cool. Hey, given the changes you've seen in the last 20 years, where do you see the future of worship over the next 20?
You know what?
Have to be prophetic here.
Yes, I will put on my...
See that gift in action.
I think it will continue to be bad. We will always have bad art. I think, and I've seen this, as I talk to some of my friends who, my sister's an architect. She works for a Christian architecture firm, a very large one, that's built a lot of Elevation Church. They built Elevation Church, and big ones, Saddleback. It's really interesting how there is a de-emphasis on production, and there's real questioning around making spaces more communal in nature, instead of this, we're on a platform, presenter,
yeah, there's a distance.
Yeah, and a
the
dissonance.
Worship leader and everyone
yeah,
else. Yeah.
So there's real there's real questions about how do we strip back, do less, but engage more.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to tag something on here. We've talked a lot about for worship leaders and how we in our churches can change things. What do you think for everyone here as we engage in worship at places that maybe don't do these things well? How can I as an individual walk into a space that's maybe not set up well and still connect with God?
Yeah, this is a great spiritual discipline, right? So for me, when I walk into a space, this is like the plight of the artist in the church. You're just postured for critique. You're just already noticing everything that's wrong. And so on my best days, which are fewer than there are, on my best days, I walk in, and I would say this is an okay tension, and I'm analytical or critical. But what that does is it exposes something about me, my heart. And on my best days, it leads me to open my heart to God in prayer to say, Lord, what are you teaching me? Why do I think this is wrong? Why do I think it could be better? See, this is also a reflection of me just being human, right? It shows my heart, and it also, my heart longs for something that doesn't exist here, and that's perfection.
Yeah, and that's good, because at the end of it, you can either make a judgment about what's going on in that church,
right?
Or a judgment's kind of a harsh word.
Observation.
An observation about yourself.
Yeah.
Your observation of the church, you can't make a change in.
Right.
But your observation of yourself,
right,
you can take to God and hope that change comes from that.
You could totally miss yourself in worship, which is the saddest part, right? You walk away like this. That was great. Why? Because it made me feel good. Or that sucked. Why? Because, the sound was off, and like the slides weren't artsy enough, and the band wasn't just like, they were a little all over the place.
Yeah, and you've learned nothing about yourself or about God.
Yeah.
We joke in our department about how often worship leaders, we say, hey, check your stuff at the door. And so you're not allowed to even bring yourself into worship to meet with God. Yeah. So one last question. We ask this to all of our guests.
Okay.
What are kind of your biblical foundations for worship? What principles or maybe passages really kind of direct you in your thinking about worship?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll admit this is a developing thing and not a perfected thing. But I guess for me, it's I look at Jesus and I'm trying to get at how he lived, how he worshiped, and it wasn't in a room. And so I'll be quite honest, right now things for me are a little shaken up because where does the weekend fit into the way of Jesus? And years ago I wrote my journal on one of my retreats for our program. I wrote, the weekend is a dead end. And that was really convicting for me. And so I don't have a theology for the weekend or a biblical underpinnings for the weekend. But I do have a theology for getting small. You look at the Pauline epistles, this small. It's committed. It's messy. We were talking about this morning, truthing in love. See, that in worship, we don't do that. We don't truth in love. We don't notice where people are really at, and we don't share where we're really at as leaders. And so, like, for me, if we could just do that, I think that would be a game changer, at least on the weekend. And that's that Ephesians text, right, where Paul says to truth and love. I would love to see that more and more developed in the heart of our leaders and those who program worship in the church.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Matt. Thanks for being here. Thank Matt for being here.
Biola University prepares Christians to think biblically about everything, from science to business to education and the arts. Learn more at biola.edu.